But yeah, go ahead and record.
Thank you everyone for joining. This is our monthly Think Big session for Package, and today we have a few extra people from the secure team joining us as well. So today we'll be going through the agenda, and it looks like Ian has the first item. Hopefully his audio is working?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Can someone hear me? Oh, fantastic. I just had to turn everything off. This is the perfect way to start. Yes, just like Tim said, I am really excited because this Think Big is our first time trying to include some cross-stage peeps in our conversations, and hopefully that can help us solve the walled garden experience we've had with our users during the sus testing, if you remember way back to January. So we have Nicole and Kyle and Fabian and Felipe, which is even more people than I thought, so I'm even more excited now. A little bit, we're going to dive into some places where secure and package can kind of overlap, and I'm really excited to see what they are. But first, I, of course, selfishly want to talk about research, so we're going to dive into that first. First big thing, the job to be done survey that we all worked on, that is out in the wild. Users are actually filling it out. We're starting to get responses. It's a little bit slow, which a lot of us have kind of been considering with respondents in general. But luckily it's moving forward, and I think it's going to be in the newsletter in April, which will really help us get some results. I would really like to wrap it up by the end of April. The other big news for research is we just completed today the solution validation for the new container registry UI. I'm really excited about that. I think Nico is also pretty excited to be able to ramp up that UI. So here's a quick overview. We had 6 interviews. 12 unique insights came out of these interviews, and overall the solution is validated. Almost all of the data we presented, all of the ideas we put forward were immediately and pretty innately understood by our users. That's really, really powerful. Special thanks to David, Joam, Nico, and Nick. They all came in very last minute for interviews and observed, so they got some face time with our users to see how they'll actually think about it. I'm always excited to see that. I hope they enjoyed that as well. Some high-level insights. The left side navigation that I proposed was really well received. We had changed the dialogue from just package to say package and registries, and then add additionally the package registry and container registry. Without even being prompted, almost all of the users piped up and said, this makes so much more sense. It would be easier to find my container registries because of it. That's a really big thing because that's the global project navigation. So making a change like that requires some solid validation. The merge requests and the pipeline and the commit data were all also really positively received. We had a little bit of confusion in how they're implemented in the UI, but I got really great feedback. But the idea of us including that is going to enable our users. Several of them even said, my first step when I'm troubleshooting a tag related issue is that I'm gonna go try to find where it came from. And so you just connected me right away. So we're really going to impact users that are having issues and be able to move forward. This is a big prop to Nico. He proposed that we split the image repository and the list of tags inside of that image repository. Users loved it. They thought it made total sense. Their ability to differentiate the details of the image repository from the tags themselves really helped them kind of filter out what was going on, where they were having a struggle before. This next insight is the one that made me laugh the hardest. None of our users used the same language twice. Images, containers, and tags all got interchanged, and the one that gets me is everything is an image. You see the image, the most recently published images, and then you see the bunch of images that have other tags, and then you load the image repository view, and those are all images too. So everything is an image. They also like to call them containers, and then they quickly switch back to images. So my takeaway is, to our users, everything is an image. So we should probably be careful to make sure that we use the consistent nomenclature, both inside of the container registry and outside of it. Last insight, if not my favorite one for today, because it tees us up perfectly, we snuck a little nugget into the testing and introduced just a really high-level idea of showing vulnerability scanning results inside of a tag. And basically just said there was a warning flag and then a message that said, hey, we think we found something. here you go. No user was even confused by that. They weren't thrown off by it. It made total sense to them. One even said they're like, oh, duh, this is exactly where it should be kind of moment, which is perfect because that's why we're talking to everyone on secure. So we have some user validation that this connection really does make sense. I'm really excited. The next step for the container UI is to partner with Nico in the front end and figure out how we're going to break it apart, work through some technical restrictions, and really start improving that experience for our users. And with a very long-winded overview, I think Tim has the next point.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we are also currently doing research on the feature for remote and virtual repositories. We've talked to a couple of people so far, and we're trying to recruit more candidates. So more updates to come on that in the coming weeks. Okay, and then I think Nicole and Kyle are next.
I guess, did everyone get a chance to see the video, or should we give you like, okay, cool. So we don't need to give you a quick TLDR. So right now we're mostly like chilling out in when people are doing builds or adding code is where we're hiding our container scanning right now. And obviously there's a lot more opportunity to get in their face is not the right word. Into more obvious places, I think, because I feel like when people are looking for their images or looking for image information, they're probably not going to go to their pipeline and they're not going to go to their security dashboard off the bat. So I'm definitely kind of excited about the opportunity to go and look at the registry page, maybe. And should we look at that first couple issues there, or do we just want to like start going crazy whiteboard somewhere? I see Kyle smirking.
Let's pull up the issue. I think that the first issue, that makes sense.
So right now we're trying to work through people not knowing that they're, or knowing if they are or are not scanning their images. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with the compliance group at all, but the compliance group, for some companies, they need to have specific measures in place, such as, are you doing these certain security scans, or are you doing security scans to be able to pass compliance audits? So this isn't just a security thing, it's a compliance thing as well, to know what's enabled at what level. And so it would, like right now we've got, I don't see the mock-up in here, it must be in a different issue, but we've got the ability where we're gonna add, you know, to say, hey, you've got this turned on or off. And
Nicole, are you sharing? Did you want to share your screen?
I thought I was sharing, but I guess I'm not. Somebody else is now sharing.
I think I was, but if you have your screen open, maybe share it, because I opened the issue.
I hit share, but I guess I didn't hit share a second time. There we go. Oh my goodness, Zoom, stop that. Okay, can we see it this time? Maybe? No, the wrong.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool.
We got you.
So yeah, this one is make explicit on the security configuration page, which if I wander over here and go to configuration and pop that in a new tab, you know, make it clear that you've got this stuff turned on, but as you can see, it's kind of nestled over in here. So I was wondering, is that anything anyone has ever mentioned to any of y'all? Like being able to maybe put this little, you know, you've got container scanning on or not yet configured, maybe right where they're storing their items?
Or the alternative too is when they set up their container, letting them know that it's not being scanned and that it could be. So it kind of goes both ways on that.
Yeah, like if I was here, and do I have any things, being able to kind of say something here and then saying here, like whether this was scanned or not. Has anyone ever seen our dependency page?
I don't think I have.
So if I pop into here, right now we tell you kind of here's your component and if it's got vulnerabilities or not. So that's sort of what I'm seeing in my head, but that's just because this exists. This obviously maybe isn't the best way to do that. But, it's like, here's your component and here's your vulnerabilities for it. And that might be interesting if that was something, I don't want to make your page too crazy, but it would be interesting to be able to like maybe have a little bit more information about those packages there and say that we scanned it.
Ian, is it worth bringing up your design to show how you were showing the vulnerabilities for registry for containers?
Sure. Give me just
All right.
1 second.
Because I think that looks good, Nicole.
So, can everyone see my nice little design?
Yep.
So what we post, this is actually where the test came from, so it's a really great example. This is a specific tag existing inside an image repository in the container registry. At the base default list view, which kind of looks like this, we just give a warning flag. The idea was that we would give a tooltip that came up and said, vulnerability detected, or I'm not quite sure what the language would be, but we would want to stay consistent with what you all are using. And then if a user expanded the details, we give them kind of a synopsis of whatever that vulnerability was, and then direct them to the scanning page. All the users felt really comfortable. 2 of them even said that if we included more information than that, it would just kind of busy the page. It felt natural for them to go to the secure area. I think we could, this is the proposed kind of container registry page, which is the one that you had pulled up before. We could show and say that this image repository, maybe using an icon, or I'm not quite sure how, we could show this image repository is getting scanned. And so they can look at the individual tags and know that they're either, maybe we say it passed, everything is good, or we only show when there's a warning, something like that. My question, and maybe this is my personal confusion, and I would love to get it cleared up, is when you're doing the scanning, is it only on individual tags that get scanned? And so it's only at this level? Or do we know that all of the images that go into that image repository are getting scanned?
One of the 2 engineers can probably answer this better than me, but my understanding is if I include it in something that I'm going to do as part of my project pipeline, then it's going to get scanned. So if there were something that was not included, it wouldn't be. And then there's also a catch right now of we can't scan multiple images at once, but we do have a patch coming for that.
Gotcha.
So there could definitely be a good handful of those that maybe wouldn't necessarily get scanned off the bat.
What product tier is the scanning in? I just don't remember.
I'm gonna put a big asterisk on this. Right now it's ultimate only. However, there are discussions of some of the open source tooling components going down to core, but that would only be the scans themselves. Any of our stuff, like we have something suggested solutions where when we find your image is an older image, we're like, hey, you should update to this new image, click this and we'll make the MR for you. A lot of that functionality is going to remain in paid tiers. But there's an asterisk on there because the date is TBD.
Cool.
Question. Can we scan only image or tags created through the pipeline, or we have the ability to scan anything like deliberately uploaded directly to the registry? Because we have both the option.
Today it's just the pipeline, but that doesn't necessarily mean that has to be forever, although we do need a way to run that. So we've talked before about, I think, ghost pipelines or single purpose pipelines to kind of accomplish that maybe.
Is there an API that gets triggered when the pipeline runs that kicks off scanning? Is that what happens? Could we? No. Okay.
It's a Docker image that contains all of the elements that need to run.
What about for
Inception?
What about for other packages? I saw you pulled up the security report and had Ruby packages on there, for instance. Like, what if, can we do the same for NPM and Maven?
Do the same as in?
And have security scanning and report vulnerabilities in the package registry UI?
So right now we have dependency vulnerability information reported on certain package managers, and we also have license information reported on certain package managers. Again, we're running them right now via pipelines, but I think there's a backlog issue somewhere. Philippe, you might recall it better than me, but I think we were thinking if we could work with our own internal package managers, we would love to warn people, like, you should get an update on this, or any other pieces of information. If we could correlate it back up in the same way we're thinking about images, like correlate that data at visibility in different places. And some customers, even for various security and compliance reasons, want to be able to block certain packages from coming down from certain registries. And so we've got backlog items for that as well.
We've had users talk, as we asked about Magic Wand kind of features, about being able to display packages in RUI in the registry that either have a dependency that's a vulnerability or they themselves are a vulnerability. So that's something that they do want to see in RUI. So that could be a great place of connection. I've also heard from DevOps engineers with the focus on package say that they'd like to be able to blacklist. That's a bad phrase. They would like to have a list that you cannot use of packages and to scan that automatically as well.
We've been using block, BLOCK, block list, and allow list on our groups.
I like that. I'm going to use that from now on. Thank you. So is there currently like a warning middle ground where it's our suggestion not to use it or the DevOps suggestion not to use it, and we can display that in the package UI? This is being used there.
Right now, we just kind of, similar to containers, say like, here's how many vulnerabilities of what level. Do y'all know the levels of findings, or no? It's critical, high, medium, low, and unknown tend to be the standards. And so in a lot of cases, right now, we just say you have X high, X critical, yada, yada, yada. The interesting thing, though, is we can right now require you to get someone's approval to be determined by project, where if it's a critical or a high, we can prevent you from merging that in without a merge approval. And so we don't necessarily have a way to completely like prevent anyone from getting it in the first place, which would people have asked for, and so it would be nice to kind of move it earlier up in the flow if possible. But we do have a way to force people at least to say, oh, this has issues, you can't go in, without somebody signing.
Okay, yeah, I think there's some crossover for us too, because we hear some of that block. We called it block list, and we were calling it approved and banned. So I like your terminology better. We have some crossover there because we have this category, the dependency firewall, and we hear people want to add these block lists. So that could be a future area for crossover as well. I was hoping we could also review Kyle's issue about auto updating when there are vulnerabilities detected. I thought that was a really cool issue too. If we could jump to that.
Yeah,
one.
for sure. Kyle, do you want to share that one? And that's the one I was kind of referencing earlier, where we automatically suggest an MR, like, please take this update and use it.
Yeah, sure. This is so this is just based on the upcoming suggested solution feature that we have, and this will affect container scanning. Again, that's the prerequisite of it being that it's configured correctly. But if it is, this will then be seen, these results can be seen on the dashboard, on the security dashboard at both the group and project level. And it'll automatically create an auto fix, a merge request with the fix by our new GitLab security bot, actually. So the suggestion that we were making here that relates to this is, and it's still a question, I did put some early ideation based on what Ian was testing. is on where the tags are, is showing that vulnerabilities have been detected and suggested merge requests with solutions exist. So if they clicked that, they would land on the merge request list with with the label, either this or the author, which would be the GitLab security bot. And this would be the list of those automatically created fixes that are ready for them. This is important because these merge requests are getting created, and we want to have these call to actions where available. So the other call to action that we would see is going to be on the security dashboard. And there really isn't another place that this is yet. So we want to get better at communicating when these merge requests exist, because we're not, at the moment, we don't have emails sent, or we're not sending other alerts or to-dos or anything. So this would be the only one. And if this was valuable, if based on what you all saw in the user research, I imagine it might be that hopefully this call to action would get them to those merge requests, to look at those merge requests and start acting on them.
I guess I have a question of how tags work, and this is my own not knowing. Would it be valuable in some way if we could understand tags and correlate things to tags? Or is it okay that we just correlate things to the images right now?
I have to hop in, and the running joke is that you can't understand tags.
I feel slightly better.
I think image level is fine, honestly, yeah. I had a question about, because I think we talked about kicking off automated merge requests when the package or the image has been updated upstream as well. So if you're pulling an image, like, and it changed on wherever you're pulling from upstream, automatically submit a merge request to rebuild it. Could we piggyback off of that functionality for our own purposes for those sorts of changes?
Possibly. So the way that we're doing it right now is obviously when we detect it in the pipeline, we create the MR using the bot. But I would definitely, I'll try and hunt down a couple of the bot issues and everything. If y'all want to like follow along and make recommendations to how to make it a little bit more generic so you can re-leverage that bot for updates and what we're doing, that would be awesome.
I know Nick brought that up a few months ago, actually. We were talking about using Renovate Bot or something like that to auto-update NPM packages. So that would be really cool if we could see that through. How is the best way for us? Is it the best way to jump into that issue that we're looking at now?
So I think looking at the bot issue and seeing how we're planning to do the bot issue, which should be starting soon. Right now we're working on a lot of offline stuff. Would probably be the best way to be like, if I wanted to do X, like think about how you'd need to execute and be like, hey, if I needed to do X, could the current design allow me to do that? So we can start maybe seeing if it is extensible or if we could add little hooks that you could work your way into. And I know that right now we need to extend out, right now we're doing Yarn for suggested solutions, but we want to expand that out to the more popular languages, which actually the data team just made a really awesome dashboard, if you haven't seen it, for what the top languages for Ultimate customers are, which is our main target user group. And so we're going to be looking at those to see what registries they're using so we can expand suggested solutions to them.
Nicole, I'm going to just link that bot issue, but is that the security bot issue that we worked on, or is that the other task bot?
Yeah, the
Which
security bot. I'd link security bot. And then also there's another group working on a bot to make API keys. So there's a channel in Slack. Can I find it? If I can't find it, Project Access Tokens, and they're also planning to use a bot. So at least if y'all haven't created a bot before, we're hanging out in that channel to watch that experience and learn from that experience experience when we go make our bot. Hopefully it goes a little smoother.
And overall, just the bot conclusion was it's not a big lift. It's relatively straightforward.
And just to quickly circle back on some of the earlier suggestions we made about just having whether or not container scanning is turned on, or and having the vulnerability, even just the little warning symbol. What's the complexity of implementing that on our container registry? Is that something that's relatively straightforward to add because it exists somewhere else, or is it a bit more complicated?
Slightly more complicated. The enabled and not, I think it's not that complicated. You can just re-leverage the same query we're using to populate that right now. But if a particular one has a vulnerability, we'd probably want to create an issue and have that discussed, because right now we use JSON artifacts to store a lot of our data. And so it's not like a straightforward API or anything at this point.
I'm wondering, where do you think is the right place to make users aware of, you know, this type of scanning and these other types of possible features that go along with it? If they start using the container registry and you know, they're on that registry list page, and maybe none of those things are turned on yet, so they don't see the vulnerability warning flag, like where would be the right place to add that information that's not like in a nagging way of like, hey, there's this thing?
I mean, my honest opinion is, like, if there were a small area of extras, I have no idea what it would be called, we can figure that out, but like in extras, anything that is related to but not directly, just give a quick like summary of yes, no. Like you were saying, keep it really simple. Don't try and necessarily sell them on it or anything. Just be like, hey, here's extra features related to dependencies. Here's extra features related to containers. Here's extra, and like, yes, you're using it. No, you're not using it, which I believe the growth team was talking about. How do we clearly convey to our users the value that they're paying for, that they're also getting out of the product? And I think that could also dovetail into that work where we're showing our users, here's some value that you haven't leveraged yet, and then be able to send them to additional information on just the little yes nos. Because I have a feeling across the different stages there's a ton of things that are interrelated, and it's just like you're not using it. Did you know that it's an option you've paid for?
Would you want to send them to docs or straight to that security page to like start setting it up?
For right now, I'd say docs until we get Kyle's modification to make our configuration page friendlier. Once we've made the page a little friendlier, I think we could send them there. But right now, like, you can't directly click to turn it on. You have to update your settings YAML. And so it would be frustrating and not valuable to send them to that page today, but give us a little bit and my opinion of that would flip.
It looks like Philippe has the next item, or Philip has the next item.
You're talking about this one?
Yeah.
That's a big one. I just said a probably think too big here, but
that's the title. Think big. Go big.
Think big. All right, shooting to the moon. We have a lot of customers asking for more security compliance, etc. And the recurrent topic is we don't want the human to be involved at any point. We want the servers to be deployed and not being accessible by anyone. We want the pipeline to run and be the one and only way to deploy things. And in this context, the Docker images that are being created right now with the GitLab workflow, there is no way to ensure that these Docker images have been created by the pipeline, and there's no way to ensure that they are good to go and that kind of things. There are tools out there like Graphias or Kritis that could be used for binary authorization so that we can sign the image and add some metadata to the image directly, like the number of critical vulnerabilities, for example, and prevent the deploy based on that. We could reuse that in the UI directly, like in the registry. If I had the opportunity to see that an image has been created by a pipeline, it's signed, the signature is the right one, and here is all the metadata that we have added during that pipeline run. That could be very useful, I think, for these users. And that's connecting a lot of dots. I understand that. But with Think Big here, any comments on these ideas, concerns?
Now, when you're saying that they want to be able to like pre-approve things, has anyone said that, you know, they have a process to get a new one approved? Or is it like there is a certain department that does that and developers have no influence?
So you're talking about the second part. The first part is completely related to containers. The second part is only packages.
I mean, like it could also apply to containers. Like in general, do developers get any kind of, I would like to request a image, or I would like to request a package that are not in my approval list? Or is it like there's a department for this, or does it vary?
Let's say that again, sorry.
I'm just trying to think if there should be a way, like let's say we put up a rule that says you can only have the images that are already in here, you can already have the packages that are already in here.
Yeah.
Would it be valuable for a developer to be able to request something and have that workflow go to someone and be like, somebody's requested this, we're not giving it to them yet, but they've requested it, do you want to approve it? Or
it's generally how it works, and that's really weird because I've heard a lot of times like it's the CTO who validates directly or approves directly the packages that would be used in the pipeline, or the CTO office. So there is already this kind of workflow in inside the companies that we're working with.
okay, so there is a workflow, and maybe if we did that workflow, that would be a value add. So it's like we restrict it so they can only have these, but they could put in some kind of request that goes to user XYZ or something. I'm just trying to think about like the whole workflow of like, it would be frustrating to someone to be like, well, these are my only options, but I need X and I can't find it. It would be nice if there was like a button to request more, but I don't automatically get it. And then maybe we could help the person who's receiving the request to be like, and we scanned it and it's terrible. We don't recommend you approve it.
In my wildest dreams, we would have a team like the vulnerability research team that we have in Secure, auditing all the packages, the top 100 packages, for example, for NPM, for Ruby, and other languages, put a stamp on it, like it's good to go, it's green, and automatically our package managers, our package registries and GitLab would download these packages and they would be pre-approved. And you could change that, you could approve more packages by hand, but at least you would have a list that is GitLab approved. I know it's a lot of work, but if you think about how we would do that, it's a lot of work at the beginning because we would have to assess a lot of packages at once. But once we have done that, we only have to assess the deltas, the diffs between the versions. It's not too much work, I think. And there's a lot of value in there. We wanted to do that in Gymnasium because we had a lot of customers asking for this kind of data, and there's value behind this. We can actually sell that service. It could be part of Ultimate or whatever, but there is value behind this. Having someone that is able to say it's good to go. And imagine that all of our customers are doing that currently one by one. And if we have customer A, B, C, A is going to do an assessment, B is going to do the same assessment, and C is going to do the same. We're replicating this effort by the number of customers that we have. It doesn't make any sense to me. So if we could have something that would be centralized, and maybe customers could contribute in some way, like they could add some more packages to this top 100, or something that could have some value as well. But if we think about all this chain and we switch gears here, not on the container topic anymore, we're on the package. The way we consume package it's already what Sonatype is providing with Nexus. It's already what Artifactory is providing, like a way to navigate on the dependencies and all the components that you are using in your application. So we need to get better on this. Right now, it's not because we're just saying there is something that might be wrong with your package, but there's nothing preventing you from using that package. You can bypass that very easily. The same goes for the containers. Imagine that, and I know it's recorded, so maybe we should, can we pause the recording just for 1 minute because we have a security issue that I would like to mention?
You know, GitLab.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of companies would love to be able to say, here's what we've approved, and here's what we've signed, and here's what we trust.
We've also heard from our users, specifically the package, whereas like the DevOps team members, they want to be able to say, maybe not in terms of restricting what's allowed in there, but be able to say, this is an approved base image, and this is an approved version of the package, and stuff like that, especially when we start thinking at the group level, and even the instance level for some of our large customers. They would like for their DevOps team to be able to say, hey, all of the organization use this base image and things like that, and be able to clearly indicate what they say is approved and safe and ready to use and what could possibly still be vulnerable. So we can look at that from both directions.
I just had a clarification question, because some of what we were talking about is signing packages, like using Content Trust or Notary, and it happening within within our customer's organization. And then we also mentioned maybe GitLab would sign off and approve and provide certain approved images or packages as well. Is it two-sided? Is it GitLab says these are GitLab verified images that you could use to get started building a Ruby app or building a Node app, and then separately we provide the Notary and Content Trust tools?
I think it's lots of different components that people would merge together depending on what they wanted. So like we might sign off on certain images for particular reasons of, we have checked these for vulnerabilities, you know, internally. We might sign off for other ones separately of, this is preferential, versus sign off on the separate ones of, this is the GitLab official image if you want to do the official thing the official way. So I think there's all different kinds of sign-offs, and we'd have to eventually dig into the nuance of that, because some companies are going to like say, I want all three. Other companies are going to be like, just, I don't want vulnerabilities. And other ones are going to be like, no, I need to use only official whatever. So depending on the customer, depending on their intended purpose, I think it's going to be like, does the internet say it's bad versus does GitLab say this is 100% the thing I should be using?
Okay, yeah, because I do hear often about like I just heard yesterday on Twitter, people are asking about implementing Tough for PyPI, which is like their version of content signing. So I do hear that often. It's kind of been pushing us towards inner sourcing versus open sourcing. So instead of saying these are approved images that have been verified by GitLab, we would empower our customers to do that themselves. They would say these are the approved images for use throughout the company.
I think we have to do both.
I like that idea, yeah.
Because I may have a team and I may want to say I approve these. Or I may be like, I'm installing Omnibus and I only want to use ones that GitLab signed off on in order to do my Omnibus. So I think we have to have all the flavors, unfortunately, and we can start with one. And then as we hear feedback, we can decide what to do next. And I think that gets into compliance because, you know, let's put the GitLab signing ones off as like over here, and let's just do the sign verification as here. That's probably a good starter, because a lot of companies may be like, how do I know I got the right one? And I think that would help ease them.
Quick interjection, y'all. We're running up on time. We're coming pretty close to the end. There are a few other comments in the document, in the agenda. I don't know if people feel like it's worth covering the rest of those comments, or they just want to start thinking about wrapping up. By the way, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much. That's it for me.
who's got the next agenda item? Is it?
Joao.
It was just a comment on the need to sign container images. So that's something that we can look in future using either Notary or the content trust from Docker. But for now, it's not really possible because we can't do something like freezing tags. And we won't be able to do that until we have a metadata database for the container registry. So that's postponed, I think. I think it would be useful to hear the comment from Nico, so the last one.
Straight to the last one. There is in between some other stuff. Well, okay, since I'm speaking, so I was wondering, for the sake of iteration, what we can do right now, maybe by leveraging the API. I didn't export the API beside the documentation, and maybe there is some data that we can already pull out from there.
So the answer is that API is going to be, it's complicated and it's not necessarily going to get you exactly what you want / think / everything. But I think creating, I see kind of three, one really quick win, one potentially soon quick thing is, first, can we just tell people, figure out where to tell people, like, you are scanning your images in this project or not. Might be really quick and easy. That shouldn't be hard. And I think the next thing is, let's have an issue where we discuss how do we get any of the scan information that we have or any of the vuln information we have exposed in, like, the cool thing that the users were seeing, you know, work that into there. And I know Kyle's got that one mock, and like discuss, like, what do we maybe we need to do to make that easier on y'all, or what can y'all do with what we've got today, and take that as our next one.
Would it be valuable, for example, since it seems from the documentation, what we can do is that to hit the API for the project, filter for container registry, if there is any entry, put a banner and say, hey, something here went wrong, go to your security dashboard and check. This could be a first step, maybe.
Does the API let us do that today, filtered down to containers in general? I don't think it does. Let's have an issue and check it. I'm not confident it does that yet, but okay, that doesn't mean that it can't.
There is a report type parameter on the API, which one of those values being container scanning. So that might be what.
Right, you might only be able to get the most recent. And I'm sort of wondering if it's a case of no data is better than incomplete / misleading data. So we have some weird catches around how often or how long we keep things around. And my concern is, if we pull something right now, we may only pull the latest pipeline run results. And if your latest pipeline didn't have issues, just because we do a diff, like if this pipeline had issues and this pipeline didn't have issues, and you pull the latest, you only get the one that says there's no issues, even though there's an issue. And I'm not sure if that's going to be there or not. So that's why I want to look into it. Like, that's what I said, is you'll get data, but I'm not sure you're going to get the data we think you're going to get. Or did that make any sense? Like, it might be misleading data, and I'd be afraid of that, but we can dig into it.
But a really good place to start might be just to show if the container scanning is turned on or off. And then this way we can create visibility for the ultimate secure feature, and we could drive more people to that dashboard, and then we can get more feedback and iterate from there, right? That's like probably the smallest step we can take.
That's definitely step one. And then step two is, let's figure out how to get some vuln information that's not misleading. And I can create those 2 issues on my backlog, unless y'all want to do it there, and we could just have that discussion of how do we give you that, or how do we make that available to y'all to pull.
Well, we have the issue Kyle created. We could take that. It's just a question of, I think we could prioritize it. It might give us some, like, I mean, I should ask the team, but it might give us we might have a fresh set of eyes, and we might look at it differently or think about the problem a little bit differently, and that could be nice.
Sure.
Okay, I'll see if I could prioritize that particular issue in either the next or the next milestone.
All right, I'm gonna take this little bit of a pause. Just a few minutes before we wrap up. I pride myself on wrapping up on time. This is maybe the second time that's ever happened, but thank you so much, all of our wonderful guests, for coming and talking with us during our Think Big. I hope you found it to be valuable, and we'll get some new features and new experiences for our users that they will like and appreciate. I know on our side that we've heard that they really want to see more how stable, how safe, how secure are my packages and containers. So I think this was a good conversation. This was the first time that we're testing whether having someone from another stage come and join the Think Big is a productive endeavor. So of course, I will be creating a retro issue with everyone that I know it's your favorite thing in the world to do. But I'll ask a couple of questions about, was this helpful? Would you want to do it again? Stuff like that to see if we should, make this a regular practice, or if this is a one good time and that's all we need. Unless anyone has any final thoughts to share, just want to say one last time, thank you all so much. I always appreciate you coming and talking about users and experiences and ways that we can enable them better.
This was awesome. Thank you.